Okay, can everybody hear me okay? Yeah? So, hello everyone. My name is Erika Sirrimane from Euromonitor International. If you haven't heard of Euromonitor, we're a multinational research firm focusing on strategy research for consumer markets. So, my role at Euromonitor involves creating custom research solutions for businesses and organisations in Australia and New Zealand. But I also have a research background, having previously been a senior research analyst in our ANZ research team. So, today I'd like to welcome you to our session entitled Malaysia Market Analysis, Baby Leaves and Beans. So to give you a brief summary, the session today will include a market overview as well as an analysis of consumer preferences, supply chain analysis, and then lastly some sort of overview of our recommendations for the export of baby leaves and beans to Malaysia. To give you a background, Euromonitor was engaged by Horticulture Australia to conduct this project between November 2013 and February 2014, following recommendations from Project VG 12042, which was produced by Ag Econ Plus. So that project provided evidence that existing baby leaf and bean export markets were not yet fully accessed or developed, and also noted that value-added products that have been successful in Australian markets were yet to find their way to Southeast Asian countries and Middle Eastern countries. So it was in light of this that Horticulture Australia commissioned Euromonitor to undertake market research in Malaysia and the UAE to identify market opportunities for baby leaves and beans. So this session today will focus solely on Malaysia. So we used a combination of research methodologies to undertake this study, and that included desk research, store audits, trade interviews, as well as consumer surveys. So I'm just going to launch straight into it, starting with our market overview. We've learnt a lot about Malaysia in the morning session, so I'm not going to go into too much depth here, but basically Malaysia is comprised of a well-developed West Peninsula and a predominantly forested East Peninsula. The bulk of the population resides in the west, which has a higher rate of urbanisation. Has a population of around 29 million, and in 2012, hypermarkets and supermarkets held a 44% value share of grocery sales within the country. Okay, so for the purpose of this study, baby leaves includes brassica, lettuce, spinach, rocket, and chard. And brassica includes cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, and Brussels sprouts, and beans refers to long beans and French beans. So according to our study, the consumption of baby leaves is growing in Malaysia, increasing by a 5.2% CAGR between 2010 and 2012. So CAGR refers to the compound annual growth rate, or in simple terms, the average annual growth rate. Among the categories researched, brassica and lettuce were most commonly consumed. Baby leaves are perceived as being healthy, organic produce of premium quality and rarity among local consumers. However, baby leaves are typically priced 20 to 30% higher than full-grown leaves. Nonetheless, growth drivers for baby leaves include rising consumer awareness towards baby leaf availability and usage, as well as the growing use of baby leaves in local cuisine, and lastly, an increasing presence in food service outlets, mainly in salad dishes of Western and Japanese food service chains. Okay, so with regard to brassica, though Malaysia is self-sufficient, the country also imports broccoli, cauliflower, and cabbage, particularly cheaper variants from China. Broccoli and cauliflower are the most common Australian imports. And in revenue terms, local cultivation accounts for 76%, followed by Chinese imports at 21%. Lastly, Australian brassica imports totaled 0.5% of total revenue. So now let's look at lettuce. Again, Malaysia is self-sufficient, but it imports small volumes from China and Australia. In revenue terms, local cultivation accounted for 89.4%, followed by Chinese imports as 6%. Australian lettuce imports totaled 0.5% of total revenue. So baby spinach and rocket are consumed alongside brassica and baby lettuce in Western-style dishes in Malaysia, albeit in lesser quantities. Baby spinach and rocket are cultivated locally in the highlands, but are not as commonly gardened as the more commercially recognised brassica and baby lettuce varieties. Furthermore, spinach is more abundantly available in full-grown varieties. Malaysian consumers are unfamiliar with chard, which is mostly used in selected Western dishes. Okay, so French beans are cultivated in Malaysia, in the Cameron Highlands, in Sarawak and Kelantan, and are available year-round. Growing local supply, cheaper imports from China, and the greater availability and accessibility to Australian imports has driven demand for French beans within the country recently. However, long beans represent the quintessential bean used in local cuisine. The pricing of French beans can be as much as 40% higher than long beans. So that's an average of 5.63 Malaysian ringgit per kilo compared to $3.92 Malaysian ringgit per kilo for long beans. So in terms of performance, the industry generally observed stable demand over the past 3 years with no notable growth or decline, as well as no significant advertising for the commodity. While self-sufficient in French beans, Malaysia also imports small volumes of French beans from China. French bean imports from Australia are more expensive than local produce or imports from other countries. However, they are well recognised by local consumers for their freshness, premium quality and texture. However, given the comparable standard of French bean local produce to Australian imports, coupled with their comparatively lower price points, local produce is expected to provide a significant challenge to importing countries in the future. Okay, so we now look at long beans. So long beans consumption exhibited an 8% CAGR between 2010 and 2012. So that's higher than the French beans which was at 0.5% CAGR over the same period. Long beans accounted for 82% of bean consumption, and that's compared with 18% for French beans. Long bean imports from China and Thailand are expected to stabilise over the forecast, while local cultivation is expected to increase. Okay, so now I'm going to move over to the consumer preferences segment of the presentation. So the next few slides will discuss consumer preferences for baby leaves and beans. Data comes from online surveys which were conducted in Malaysia in December 2013. And all qualified respondents had purchased or consumed baby leaves and or beans in the previous 6 months. Okay, so 82% of the respondents consumed baby leaves and salad greens in the past 6 months, while 84% had consumed beans. The majority had consumed both baby leaves and beans, and most respondents consumed both baby leaves and beans at home and at consumer food service outlets. The majority of baby leaf consumers typically purchase brassica from stores for home consumption. Brassica is the most popular, followed by lettuces, spinach, rocket, and chard. So why is brassica popular? Well, it's widely available in retail channels, and consumers are familiar with these products, and they can be used easily in local cuisine. Brassica, particularly broccoli and cauliflower, is most commonly used in other food preparations, as opposed to salads or being eaten raw. So what is another food preparation? Well, in this case, it typically includes stir-fried local cuisine, local dishes. However, smooth-leafed green cabbage is more often used in sandwiches, wraps, or burgers due to its crispness and slight sweetness. Lettuce is often used in salads and commonly eaten raw. Spinach, often the full-grown variety, is mainly used in the preparation again of local cuisine, incorporated primarily into stir-fry dishes which are popular among the local Malay, Chinese or Nonya ethnic groups. Long beans and French beans are used primarily as essential ingredients as well in local food preparation, for example, belacan chili stir-fried or garlic chili stir-fried dishes. Beans are commonly used in curry dishes as well, and therefore deeply rooted in several of Malaysia's well-known local dishes. Okay, so how do consumers view produce and where that produce comes from? Most respondents viewed Malaysia as the preeminent supplier of baby leaves, long beans and French beans within the country. Local brands such as Highland Fresh and Genting Gardens saturate major hypermarkets and supermarkets. Furthermore, Chinese imports are easily accessible in hypermarkets, supermarkets, and wet markets. Australia was ranked third, with more than half the respondents considering the country to be a principal supplier of high quality but pricey fresh produce. So hypermarkets represent the main go-to channel for the purchase of baby leaves in Malaysia. Mass hypermarkets like Giant and Tesco outperform premium hypermarkets like Jaya Grocer, Isitan, or cold storage. By contrast, consumers indicate a higher predisposition to buy long beans and French beans at wet markets and supermarkets. Long beans and French beans are typically sold in their signature loose format in supermarkets, which is not only generally perceived as being fresher and pesticide-free, but it also allows for consumers to actually self-select. Hypermarkets and independent food stores, which package beans in coated films, plastic packs, and plastic boxes, thus render the produce less appealing for consumers. Furthermore, independent food stores were the least popular distribution channel because they do not commonly sell vegetables. So in terms of pricing and quality, a large proportion of Malaysian consumers designated average pricing with above average quality as their main preference. So this is compared with higher price but excellent quality and lower price with decent quality. The importance of quality has been increasingly emphasized, and the health hazards of added preservatives, pesticide contamination, and harmful horticultural methods have been well publicized in the media. So Malaysian consumers, exactly like Australian consumers, are looking for value for money. So they are therefore highly receptive towards price discounts and bundled promotions. Advertisements and educational articles on the dietary benefits of baby leaves and beans are also effective in piquing product awareness and consumer interest. Furthermore, endorsements by family and friends also serve as a method for facilitating purchasing decisions. Okay, so food blogs, online sources like Facebook, and TV cookery shows heavily influence consumers on how they obtain information pertaining to health, nutrition, and the cooking of baby leaves and beans. Western cuisine-centered cooking shows such as MasterChef are popular in Malaysia, as are local cooking shows such as Nona, Solera, and Chef One. Price promotions, TV cooking shows, and magazine and newspaper articles have been established as extremely influential in encouraging higher purchasing volumes. Okay, so we'll now move on to our supply chain analysis. Importers mainly import from two countries, Australia and China. However, increasingly more wholesalers are requesting Chinese imports or local produce, as Australian produce is perceived as being very expensive. The majority of importers and distributors are located in the Klang Valley, which is in Kuala Lumpur. Within the Klang Valley, the importer landscape is fairly consolidated, with only a smattering of 5 or 6 importers offering cross-category products, including large-scale importers such as Euro-Atlantic and Kaishen. These large-scale importers place greater priority on Western imports due to their high produce quality by comparison to Chinese imports. Chinese produce typically assumes a small percentage of imports, mainly in the form of hardy vegetables such as broccoli, cauliflower, and carrots. The majority of large-scale importers are specialized, with some dealing only with salad greens, fruit, or exotic fruit. Normally, large-scale importers deal directly with retailers and food service players, bypassing distributors or wholesalers. HoReCa food service channels account for approximately 70 to 80% of the main business of large-scale importers, and higher-end hotels and resorts are also key customers, with significant usage of baby leaves in their food and beverage units. Retail contributes only about 20 to 30% of large-scale importers' revenues, and that's where transactions are mainly with large-scale retailers. Retail contributes around that much because, well, there are several reasons, but basically retailers demand specific packaging requirements which vary from retailer to retailer. And major importers may not have the ability to actually respond to those needs and offer sophisticated packaging systems to cater to individual retailers. However, smaller importers such as Greenmaster, which specialises in supplying conventional salad greens, provide packaging support for retailers. Small importers tend to go direct to retail or food service outlets like large-scale importers. Lastly, mid-sized importers register a more significant presence in the smaller states of Malaysia. So that's outside the Klang Valley, and characteristically distribute to various intermediary parties, for example, wholesalers. Okay, so I'll now discuss Euromonitor's recommendations with regard to baby leaves and beans in Malaysia. So, revenue-wise, Australian imports fetched around $2.8 million in 2013. The main future growth drivers are expected to be rising disposable income and purchasing power in Malaysia, coupled with a growing appreciation of Western-style ingredients and cuisines in home cooking and food service outlets. Australian imports are currently concentrated in the retail sector at around $2.5 million in 2013. Higher revenue potential may exist in retail, in particular niche premium markets catering for consumers with high purchasing power. Okay, so to get into more specifics, I'll discuss our recommendations with regard firstly to product mix and then pricing mix. So in terms of product mix, we recommend that Australia explores stronger potential in niche upscale hypermarkets. So those are the ones that are like cold storage, Isetan, as opposed to the giants and the Tesco's. So Australian imports perform better in premium hypermarkets in expat areas such as Mount Kiara and Sri Harthamas in the Klang Valley. Secondly, pursue potential in fast-growing Western and Japanese food service chains. So there's a rising number of Western and Japanese food service chains in Malaysia, and these outlets are looking for better quality produce to sell to customers. Okay, number 3, emphasise strong Australian branding on the packaging of baby leaves. So this has already been brought up previously. Hygienic packaging and eye-catching branding is effective in capturing consumers' attention, and Australia can export baby leaves that are packaged and branded at source. Okay, so with regard to pricing mix, we recommend the consolidation of Australian export logistics. So the formation of a coalition to consolidate export activities and logistics of various smaller exporters would provide greater bargaining power, better pricing, credit management, improved marketing, and Australian brand building opportunities due to economies of scale. So as with regard to our recommendations for promotion mix and placement mix, with regard to promotion, firstly, initiate promotional campaigns to educate the masses. So consumers remain largely unfamiliar with the health benefits of baby leaves. So we recommend that you conduct promotional campaigns, in-store promotional displays, and above-the-line advertising to educate consumers and highlight the availability and benefits of Australian products. Number 2, build a strategic collaboration with TV cookery shows. How many people watch MasterChef or My Kitchen Rules or Jamie Oliver? We're saturated right now with this type of stuff. So it makes sense to make a partnership with one of these shows that people really love to watch, or even advertising during those shows, because you're going to be hitting a lot of people and a target market, people that are now starting to cook at home, interested in actually buying fresh produce, high quality produce. Number 3, increase the usage of online advertising to extend consumer outreach. So how many people right now are on their phones? Think about it. I didn't mean that, but think about it. Yeah. And I mean, it's an amazing tool to reach practically every person in this room. So imagine that in your target market. So that's the young, it's the old. I mean, my parents use phones as well. So it's everybody, and everybody's on social media or some form of social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you name it. It's a viable tool, and it should be used to actually spread your message and spread your brand building message. Okay, so with regard to placement mix, we recommend that you collaborate with a master distributor. So collaborate with master distributor to serve as the primary representative in Malaysia to provide a coherent and solid branding for Australian produce. Number 2, act as a one-stop shop for mainly Australian produce. So collaborate with selected independent small grocers to provide cold chain facilities and marketing support for fresh produce, possibly through a voluntary chain store system. So I'm not sure if you've heard of this, but I'll give you an example of what this means. So a voluntary chain store is a collaborative system adopted by cosmetics giant Shiseido, so they make makeup products. So they collaborated with small independent stores. And what they did was these stores would carry Shiseido products, but Shiseido would provide marketing and brand support. So that would sometimes mean actually hiring in-store personnel and then providing dictation on pricing and promotion. But what this allowed them to do would be to actually get into the hinterland of Japan and reach previously untapped markets. So it was a partnership. So the last recommendation that we have was initiate direct collaboration with major hypermarkets and supermarkets. So this would be to initiate a partnership with hypermarkets and supermarkets to provide special discount incentives and an end-to-end supply system. Okay, so that concludes our presentation today. I'm also available for today and tomorrow, so if you do have any questions, please do come up and ask me, and I assume there may be also a panel after the next session. So thank you.